Three, two, one. Hey, Shorties, welcome back to the Short Asian Girls podcast, where we talk about everything Asian from a 5 feet point of view.
This podcast is about music, fashion, food, chisme, and of course, just being short.
And again, of course, we may not be ABGs, but we sure are SAGs, and we will talk about everything and anything related to it.
Woo.
Yay.
Finally, the time has come, and your Short Asian Girls podcast is now in session again. I know personally, though, we've talked a lot about the music industry, the music Asian industry, but for today's episode, we are going to go ahead and dive into it a little bit more by talking about a little bit more of the entertainment industry, maybe talking about some film, some more music, different types of music, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and chit-chat with our special guest, Ronnie Boy Kids.
Yes.
Yay!
Welcome to the Short Asian Girls podcast.
Hey.
So if you would like to briefly introduce yourself first.
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Ron Neri Jr., musically known as Ronnie Boy Kids. I'm an actor and a children's musician. Yes, sir.
So again, welcome to the podcast. So first, we would kind of just like to ask your experience, or like if you have any past experience working in the entertainment industry, whether that be music, film, or just anything related to that.
Wow. How far back do we want to go, though?
As far as you want to go.
Okay. I've always had the interest in being in the entertainment industry, but as you guys probably know, as you know, Filipinos or people of color, like we just don't have the support from our parents and stuff. So I did go to college. I went to UC Riverside, got my degree, and then I ended up working at various movie studios like Lionsgate, MGM Studios, Disney ABC Television Group, and I did the whole corporate thing. But then I always knew at heart that I was an entertainer because I did dance in college.
Okay.
I loved to sing ever since I was a little kid, but I didn't do anything on a professional level. But it was like after working for years in the corporate world where I realized like, I can't do this for the rest of my life because I already know myself, and I would have like so much regret in the future having not tried, having not pursued what I'm doing now. And so I guess that's the short end of it. But then, so basically I'm doing what I love now, which is cool. Did you want me to talk about like where I first started? Well, let's see. Well, I've been acting for almost a decade now, but I would say more professionally within the past 6 years is when I started taking it seriously. That's when I booked my first TV show. And so that has been a huge chunk of my life. Like in 2021, I was on Good Girls on NBC, General Hospital on ABC, Why Women Kill, which is a CBS Paramount Plus show.
That's a good show.
I was on Puppy Place, which is like a wholesome Apple TV Plus show about dogs. It's really cool. And I also was on Bel Air on the pilot, the reboot. But my scene was cut, so don't go looking for it. But it's all good though. No hard feelings. You know what happens. It's business.
At least you were there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I didn't really get into music professionally until 2019. I met up with a friend of mine who's a producer for Universal Music Group, and he's always known that I've loved to sing, and he's seen my hustle putting out like short films, me being on TV, etc. And he was like, "Hey, bro, why don't you roll down to the studio? Let's go do a track just for kicks." And I was like, "All right, cool." And so I went down, and I sang for him a little bit because it's been a minute. And I remember another friend of his named Stux, who was also in the studio, was like, "Hey, bruh, your voice is so smooth, like Velvet." And so after that, they started calling me Ron Velvet, which is like my pop R&B alias. I released an EP not too long after that, so a 5-track EP under Ron Velvet, and then pandemic happened as you guys know, in 2020, and it kind of messed up my whole flow. I had some shows before that, and people were coming out, people were singing my songs back to me at these shows, and it was great, but then pandemic happened, it kind of just ruined all of it. And so, as you guys know, like the world was like on a pause for a long time, and it didn't work for me because I put out like club banger type of joints, and so I just kind of stepped away from music for a while, but then that's when last year I got into children's music.
It must be such a good feeling to kind of, like you mentioned, hearing people sing back the works that you created. I can't imagine like that feeling that all of a sudden kind of have that, like, I guess, taken away and like so fast.
I'll tell you how it feels when they are singing your songs back to you. It makes you want to cry because it's something you write or you co-write with your producers or whoever, and to know that people like either purposely took the time to learn your song or they just listen to it so much that they know it.
Yeah.
That they know your lyrics and you don't think that people are gonna actually learn your stuff, when you play it for them or you perform live, but it's like immediate feedback when they not only like sing your songs back, but they sing it because they like your music.
Yeah.
And so it's like I try not to get emotional on stage, but it's hard not to when people like your music. It's like it means. Like acting is cool, but I am taking someone else's words, someone's script, and I'm doing what I can with it and trying to serve, the director, the writer, the the TV show. But when you do music, it comes from your heart. It's like this is what I'm writing, regardless of it's like a party song just for kicks or like something that's super meaningful for you. You know what I mean? It's yours. So that's why I really like music.
It's like your pride and joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I know, going back into like my high school days, like dancing and choreographing like was a part of my life. So like kind of being able to be a coach and got to teach the dances and seeing them win. It was like, I understand that feeling, but like, know, you've been in the career for so long.
It's like your child almost in a way, but
it's your baby. Every song I put out is a baby. Every song I put a lot of time or thought into it. Even though like my producers and I work really, really quickly because my guys are super experienced. They've been working from either from 10 to even 30 years in the industry. So we crank out songs like pretty quickly, but then we still put a lot of thought into what we're doing. We're not just putting out random stuff, It's important for me, especially as a children's musician now, that like everything I put out has like meaning behind it, or at the very least like sounds good, you know what I'm saying? But more over everything, I'm on my second album right now. I would say the difference between the Sophomore album and my album that I dropped last year in August is this one is more deeper in meaning. Like sound wise, it's more mature too. But definitely, whether kids realize it now or later, that there's definitely a lot of meaning in a lot of my songs. So
And since you're talking about like your experience and also like your career now, I genuinely want to like ask, like, since you're both in the film industry, TV, children's music, you've done the whole pop and R&B thing in the past. If you just like break it down to like your passion for it, what's the one thing or like the few things that you kind of like appreciate about it, or like what's the thing that kind of drew you to even like pursuing it?
Well, I guess it's almost like part of just being Filipino. A lot of us are just entertainers. Like you watch the variety shows on TFC, the Filipino channel and stuff, and it's just everybody's either acting or they're singing or there's some kind of entertaining show. And so I think that's always just been a part of who I am. And so again, when I was little, I wanted to pursue acting so bad, but then my mom pretty much wouldn't let me. And so it wasn't until I graduated from college where I realized like, oh, I could do whatever I want now and don't have to ask permission. So I think the interest has always been there for me. But it wasn't until I realized like I'm an adult and I can make my own decisions. That's when I started really going for it. And music is, again, like I said earlier, I've been singing since I was a little kid. Karaoke at all the parties. I'm sure you guys sing too. We might need a sample from them soon. I've always loved singing and even dancing. I remember in high school, I had a talent show where my crew and we were called Flip Sync, like Filipino sing. Anyways, but even though only 3 of us were Filipino, the other 2 were like Vietnamese and Chinese, I think. But I called us Flip Sync, and we did this like NSYNC mega mix. And so I've always loved dancing too. So it's nice to actually do it on a professional level as a performer, be it an actor or a musician and stuff, and just
Was it ever like that moment when you knew, like you mentioned, you knew that you wanted to actually pursue it as an adult? Was it ever like scary for you to be like, oh, like what happens if it doesn't work out?
Right. I don't really think so. I don't even know if I was even thinking about it at the time, because I got into it when I was working at Disney, ABC Television Group, and people around me, especially my close coworkers, were encouraging me to pursue acting because they knew I had the interest. They knew I had like the talent. So they're like, why don't you just try it while you work here? And so fortunately, when I first got into it, I submitted my headshots and everything around town, sent it to over like 100 places, and only like, I think 1 or 2 agencies hollered back, and I got commercial representation. And so I was able to go on auditions and stuff like during my lunch break at work. And it was weird because I'd be like,
That
hey, I'm going on my lunch. It's
dedication.
3 p.m. Who the heck goes on lunch at 3 or even 10 a.m.? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was my lunch break, was going on audition and coming back and just eating at my desk. And so I always felt I had cushion, something to fall back on
Yeah.
because I was working full time, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, it wasn't until I started getting more auditions and started booking where
Yeah.
like it wasn't cool with my superiors because I would have to leave like often. And so
Yeah.
I pretty much had to make the tough decision and just jump in with both feet and hope that it works out.
Yeah.
You know? And so fortunately it has, because when I did leave the company and I started just focusing on acting specifically, that's when I started booking more. And that's when I got better at it and more confident, and it was a decision that worked out. And even if it didn't, because the industry is very difficult, much
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
music, it's okay, because I would have been happy with the fact that I at least tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, going back into what you were talking about, like, you know, TFC and like your inspiration to like, you know, the Filipino culture
Yeah.
and like how that really boosts you up and saying like, oh, maybe I can do it, you know, or I
Yeah.
can do it. Do you have any role models? I'm really curious. Like, I know I mean, personally, I have like Filipino role models and then
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
Western artist role models
Right.
to get to where I am today. But like, do you have any specifically for any specific industry you've worked in?
I would say the only like there's a lot of them, of course, but
Yeah.
The first one, or the only one that's in my brain right now, is Mr. Rogers. I don't know if you guys are too
Oh,
young
yes.
for Mr. Rogers, or
Love him.
but I always was a fan of Mr. Rogers and just like what he was doing for children, and the messages that he was putting out, and even he had episodes that at the time were like risky, like about race and having people on his show where he knew people outside of the studio would hate him because
Yeah.
it was a very like racy like time, but he did it anyway. He didn't
Yeah.
care what anybody thought. You know what I mean? If anything, he wanted them to look at it and be like, oh, wow, this is different, you know? So I've always looked up to him just because of who he is as a person, and what he was putting out, and just his overall message, you know? And that's what I'm trying to do with my children's music and my YouTube channel is when I tell people that I'm doing kids music now,
Yeah.
a lot of times people will say, oh, you're doing kids music? Dang, there's a lot of money in that. And that's always the first thing that people say.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there could be if you're one of the very few who's popping, you know what I
True.
mean? But most of us, like, no, it's a grind. A lot of children's musicians I now know, people who are in the recording academy and stuff, like, no, we're all grinding and stuff. And that isn't my motivation to do music. It's just I realize that there's a lot of bad content out there, like floating around on the internet. Like if
Yeah.
I ever have kids one of these days, I don't even think I want my kids on social media because there's just so
True.
much bad stuff out
Yeah.
there. So I wanted to combat that by putting out good messages and good music, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, whether they realize it or not, there's like really solid messages underneath like what I do. And so this is my way of fighting like the bad content that's out there, is putting out good messages, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like, since I would like to assume that your main inspiration is to kind of really, again, combat like the negative, really,
Yeah.
and to kind of like bring out more positive. And instead of kind of doing it in a way that's like, oh, let's remove that, why not replace it instead, you know? And I
Yeah.
feel like, as someone who's worked in the film, TV, and music, I feel like that's like the top 3 in the entertainment industry that you can get into.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's become a challenge for you, or like, what's the challenge for you when doing it? Like, do you feel like, oh, when I release this music,
Yeah.
if they don't like it, oh, do I have to do better on the next one? Or do I feel like I have to send a different type of message because everyone's doing this?
Right. So my thoughts on this have changed a lot within the past like few years. But it definitely is something I thought about when I first did what I did. Like when I first pursued music, I'm like, oh, this is a different genre. What are my actor friends and fans gonna think of when I
Yeah.
put this stuff out? Or when I made the decision to do kids music, I was thinking like, like I have songs for pop and R&B that maybe aren't the most appropriate for children. What do I do with that? You know?
Yeah.
And I was not going through an identity crisis, but I was thinking like, oh shoot, like what do I do? Because
Yeah.
children it's a very sensitive
Yeah.
top thing, you know?
Yeah.
But then what I realize now, having been in the game for like over a year, as far as in the children's realm, is that people listen to what they like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
Like what feels good.
For instance, like Snoop Dogg, you know,
Yeah.
you know what he raps about and stuff.
Yeah.
Like we love Snoop Dogg. We heard his stuff in the past, you know what I mean? And what he currently puts out, and it's all great stuff. But he put out a children's album that's popping. He has like a big following on it.
Yeah.
Kids love his stuff. They cover it. They put it out and everything. And so again, this goes back to people will listen to what they like.
Yeah.
You know, if they like your kids stuff, cool. If they like your pop R&B stuff, cool. If they love your acting, they'll watch you. You know what I mean? So I don't really feel like I have to necessarily. I still have to censor myself, but only so much now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I respect that so much just because, like, I mean, again, like Filipino cultures, I'm currently an auntie, you know, like I've been an auntie since like
Tita.
freshman year
short
of
Asian
high
girl.
school.
Yeah.
But like, you know, watching my niece grow up, she's now 9, but like watching her grow up and listening to the music she listened to, I was like, as an adult listening to children's music, I'm just like, there's so much more meaning to it than just like words on a piece of paper. And like, I've talked to a couple of artists too, and like those words mean something not only to them, but to their audience. So like, I really respect that. But
That's what's up. Yeah, and like not tooting my own horn, but the reason I like the kind of music that I put out, that I create with my producers, is because like we make children's bangers. That's what we call them.
Children's bangers, yeah.
And that's when I first brought the idea to my producers who do my pop R&B stuff about doing kids music. They were like, I was like, hey, guess what? You want to try something different? They're like, what's up? I said, let's do some kids music. They're like, what? And I was like, yeah, but here's the thing. We're going to do what we currently do, like as far as production is concerned, and make solid songs. But our songs are going to be, lyrically, are going to be for kids. Yeah. So we're going to make stuff that adults, like our age, because everybody who's in their 20s and 30s and, you know, early 40s who have children, they're going to dig it. And they're not going to want to, like, you know, like pull their hair out listening to some annoying song that their kids won't stop listening to, like Baby Shark a million times. Baby Shark is cool, it's alright, you know? But we're gonna make stuff that like our people like, that kids like also, because little kids, they listen to grown-up adults too, you know what I mean? They're not just listening to kid stuff, they listen to Bruno Mars and everybody, you know what I mean? Justin Timberlake and everybody, so that's like, if you listen to my album, you'll see that's like, it has a very like, almost like a grown-up sound for the most part, but you could clearly tell they're kids' songs.
I feel like that's the one common misconception when it comes to children's music is that just because it's catered to kids doesn't mean that it can't have that same production value that, like, I guess, quote unquote, adults music has. And I feel like, thankfully, through your music, you're able to kind of like show not just the kids, but also like the parents that like, hey, you know, we can have quality music that not only your kids can like, but you can too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite comments when I talk to parents or friends or whoever, that they always tell me like, hey, your music is actually pretty dope. Like I kind of like, it bangs. Like I kind of bob my head when my kid is listening to it in the car, and I'm like, cool, that's exactly what I was hoping for, you know?
I mean, talking about, you know, the kid industry, like the kids music industry, what do you see, or where do you see the industry heading, both personal and then, I mean, the overall view of it?
Like your own career and then
like
just
kind
the
of
industry.
And like what you're looking forward to as well.
Well, I would say there aren't many people who look like me that do kids music. So people of color, pretty much, and specifically like Asians or Filipinos. I only know maybe 2 other musicians who are Filipino and do kids music, and so I'm hoping that that changes very soon. And so I'm hoping that it just becomes more diverse. I would love to just inspire anybody who hears my stuff, you know, to give them like, just to let them know, like, hey, if you want to do kids music or pop music or become an actor, you can do it just through my example, you know, because the industry isn't very nice to us, right? So it's cool that like with things like, you know, this podcast or TRAKLIFE Media, like we're creating like spaces for people like us to get our names out, to get our faces seen, to get our voices heard. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that, again, that it just becomes just more diverse.
And like we've always said through our previous episodes, our future episodes, the sky's the limit, you know, like if you put your foot forward and start moving, you're gonna continue to move.
Right.
You know, and
like,
even if there's like bumpy roads, just keep going, because at the end of the tunnel is what you're looking for, you know.
And also I feel like just because it doesn't feel like there isn't room for you doesn't mean you can't make your own, you know?
Correct.
If you don't feel like you belong at that table we have our own table right here. We made our
Yeah.
own because we felt like we couldn't belong in other people's spaces. So
Yeah.
why not just be that community to help people like you, artists like you? So yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely something I've thought about, you know. Like last year, my first album was on the ballot at the Grammys for Best Children's Music Album.
Amazing.
And I remember like when I had gone through that whole process of having like an Academy member who listened to my album and submitted it and threw it into the pile kind of thing, I did realize like, wow, there's not very much color in this industry, but it's not stopping me. Like I almost like don't care what anyone thinks. I'm just putting out stuff because I like it. You know what I mean? But if I can inspire some kids or even adults along the way, cool. Even cooler, you know? It's like icing on the cake kind of thing for me. So.
And I guess now, since we got to know you, like your professional side, we kind of like bring it back to just, you know, knowing you, knowing the person behind Ronnie Boy, you know, just knowing like who you are once the cameras are off, once you're out of the studio. So we're gonna
hats off.
like your hats off, you know.
Yeah.
But we're gonna ask you some very fun, some just chill, laid back questions.
Okay.
That hopefully you'll have an answer to, and hopefully the people listening or watching can relate to. So, first question being, what's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, and I sing boring stuff. I sing ballads and stuff that like ruins the energy.
It's okay, because I feel the same.
I do like singing No Diggity,
Ooh.
Blackstreet. That's a fun
If
one.
you can sing it.
It gets the crowd hyped because everybody knows the song, you know, to some extent, and so they'll sing it back to you. I've done it like on a cruise ship once, and everybody was like, "Oh shoot, No Diggity," you know.
It's like even if you don't know them, you're like, I know that song.
Yeah.
And it's just a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a feel good song, you know. So.
So our second question is, what song or soundtrack would you pick to describe kind of like where you are now in your life or your career?
That's such a tough question. But I think, I don't know if this is corny, but I'm going to choose one of my songs that I created that was on my first album last year by Ronnie Boy Kids. It's called Believe. And this song basically says like you could do anything you want, you could be anything you see, you can do anything you put your mind to if you just believe. That's like how the chorus goes. And because like think about everything I do. As an actor, as a musician, I do voiceover, everything in the arts, everything that like our parents and older generations don't think that we can do it or we should do it even. I just made the decision to do all this stuff, even with the odds and how crazy they are, because I just believed in myself, period. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, if I have fans who cheer me on along the way, cool. And even if I don't care either. Because ultimately, I'm not really doing this for anyone else. I'm doing it for myself.
Yeah.
Because I love acting, because I love music, because I love singing, because I love to dance. You know, to have people support you, again, is like a cherry on top. But I would do it regardless. Because I love it. It's fun.
Very
If
inspirational.
I had your music growing up, I would have gotten like the more confidence earlier on, you know.
Sweet.
But
I wish I had music like that too.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up with my older sisters who are like 14 years older than me, 6 years older than me, and my cousins. Like, I'm the youngest of all my cousins. But I got to listen to their music growing up, so I feel like I'm so used to just like those R&B music, like you know, from the 90s, and the early 2000s, and I'm just like, sometimes I wish that the kids' music now, like listening to my niece's
there back
music,
then.
is
Yeah.
what I got to listen to, because like that inspiration, like mindset-wise, can go a long way.
And I love hearing those kind of comments. You know, I was talking to some editors I know from Disney, and you know, who gave my YouTube channel like a chance, and they listened to my stuff, and they're like, bro, your music is fire, man. If my kids weren't in high school right now and they were little, like I have a song called the Cleanup Song. It has like Afro beats to it and stuff. It bangs. It's pretty dope. And they're like, I would totally be playing this around the house all day, all of your music, because he recognized that I have good messages behind my stuff and my stuff sounds good, you know. So no, it wasn't there in the past, but it's here now.
Yes,
It's here now.
right now.
I feel like that's the one thing, I guess for you too, since again you're like in different industries, that's like one thing I guess creatives kind of have an advantage over other professions, because you're giving something that's a part of you to other people to kind of hopefully help them find themselves.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely, and it's like I don't know if there's anything out there that can do such a thing,
Yeah.
you know? And that's why I love being an artist so much. It's like, because we could affect lives, you know? We could if someone's going through something that's like horrible or depressed or they're anxious or whatever, sometimes it just takes listening to someone's song that really gets you to not just be in a better mood, but it maybe makes you rethink
Yeah.
your current situation, and
Yeah.
it can potentially like save lives, you know, save lives, impact lives, and again, that's really what I'm trying to do with Ronnie Boy Kids. You know, it's not the money. I mean, I barely make money off Ronnie Boy Kids, even though like my stream numbers and everything are good, you know, and my following is growing, but like it's not, you know, numbers are numbers. Ultimately, I
always.
care about humans who listen to my stuff, you know.
It's inspiration.
And then another goofy question.
Yeah.
If you were to be reborn again and you could choose, would you pick to be a short person or a tall person, given that this is the Short Asian Girls podcast?
Oh gosh, I feel like there's only one answer to that, because if I say tall, man, it's so offensive. No, no, I don't think I'd want to be tall, because you know you might smell pollution and stuff if you're too tall. I think that's such a funny question. I think I'd want to be short. Yeah, I think I want to be short because it would just be different. Is that still on?
It's okay. We can still keep recording.
Okay. Yeah, I think I want to be short. Just low to the ground. Grounded.
Yeah.
It's even deeper than even answering the question. Is you know
Keep
what I mean?
it closer.
Yeah.
Keep it closer.
I like being low to the ground. You know.
Yeah.
And then,
And, you know, kind of just very quick, very like one or two. But is there any advice you would give to someone entering the industry, whether it's like someone like us who's been in it for like only 2 years, or someone who's been in it
Freshly out,
or just like in general?
Oh wow. Generally, like a lot of like actors or people in the industry, if you're interested in getting into acting, they will tell you don't do it. Because of how difficult it is to be a working actor that qualifies for like SAG health insurance. It's you have to have thick skin. You have to be okay with putting your heart and soul into an audition and hearing nothing out of it.
especially the no.
Yeah. So and most of the time you don't even get a no. You just don't hear anything, and it's
Just
like
leave you hanging.
yeah. So if you have thick skin and you're okay with it. Then yeah, absolutely get into it. Like my thoughts on this have changed too, but I would encourage now, like I said in my songs earlier, like with Believe, is if you have interest in it, go ahead and pursue it. Why not?
Yeah.
Because even if it doesn't work out, you could always try something else. Like if I decide in like several years, hopefully I don't, hopefully I'm doing this forever, but I don't want to do music anymore, I don't want to be an actor, like it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Go do something that you actually like, you know, kind of thing.
It's like you said earlier, you know, it's giving yourself the chance to experience that before you kind of like realize it's too late, that damn, I should have done that.
Totally. So yeah, I guess to answer your question, it's pursue it if you want to. That's my advice, and also just know that like nothing is given. Hard work and dedication is everything, and I think again the hard part is, even if you're dedicated, you're a hard worker, you take all these classes, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful, and that's just how the industry is. But if you remember why you got into it into the first place, and why you're passionate about it, and why you actually like it, being music, acting, dancing, whatever, that should be enough to carry you through.
Yes, but
Straight to the heart.
very
Straight to the
inspirational.
heart.
Yeah, but this brings us to the end of our episode.
No!
Honestly,
I want
thank
to
you
talk
so
5
much
more
for
hours.
today.
But that was so
We can
inspirational.
invite- don't worry, we'll invite you over again.
Sweet.
We'll do like a whole group thing with everyone at the table.
Dope.
Yeah.
Like a little family get together.
We'll actually have a table for everyone.
We'll have
Yes.
Kamayan or whatever. it
Yes.
is.
Yeah, but we would like to thank you guys for taking the time and spending your mornings, noons, nights, late nights, or whatever time zone you're listening in to us, as well as thank you to Ronnie Boy
Thank you
Kids
so much for spending your time with us.
taking the time to kind of show us,
And share your story.
yeah,
honestly.
to kind of just share the
Oh,
story.
thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, head on over to our socials at Short Asian Girls Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter to catch up with the latest news, music, story times, and honestly just anything regarding our podcast. And also head on over to TRAKLIFE.music on Instagram as well to hear anything about the company or our podcast. And would you like to plug any of your socials?
Sure. Search Ronnie Boy Kids on everything, on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram. If you want to follow my acting journey, you could follow me at Ron Neri Jr. on Instagram. But other than that, if you're into kids, kid stuff, at Ronnie Boy Kids. I'm everywhere. I'm out here.
So yeah, follow us everywhere on our socials. And also, if you want to listen to more episodes of this podcast, head on over to your preferred streaming platforms. You'll most likely find us there.
Yes, and don't forget to use the hashtag.
Hashtag Shorties Moment.
That's hashtag SHORTIES moment to share your favorite moment from our podcast or any episodes, or just honestly anything, like talking about like inspiration or what industry you want to get into, because you never know. We might bring it up and talk about it a little bit more with someone.
And also we'll share it with our guests as well, because of course your words are valuable to us. But yeah, this is your Short Asian Girl AJ.
And I'm your Short Asian Girl Sarah Michelle.
And
it's your boy, Ronnie Boy Kids.
Our very own honorary Shorties crew
member. But also please don't forget to live your life to the fullest, because just like us, life is too short. See you in the next episode.